Bath taps are generally the same, don't really matter unless it's a thermostatic mixer tap, which is on the inside, which you would put on a wall, inside a wall. Generally they run from combis, so it's equalised pressure on a thermostatic tap. Whereas obviously these are just mixers, so basically you've got a direct cold feed coming in, a direct hot feed, and they're just mixers that are coming through. The thermostatic, you want them to be equal pressures. So different types of finishes, obviously you can go for your matte black that we've got here. You can go for chrome, brushed brass, polished brass. You can get white ones, but you rarely see white ones anymore. And if you go in any different bespoke ones and that, you are paying a pretty penny for them. Black, brass and chrome are your most popular. The brass is very in at the moment, but the brass ain't the cheapest. Probably the more expensive out your black and your chrome together. So your most expensive are hidden taps, because there's a lot of components to them, whereas obviously these are exposed. They're very simple to work on, whereas you do have bath taps that are hidden in the wall, and they have 4 different separate settings that you've got to pipe to. You've got to connect them all up. You can go from something like this for a couple £100, or you can go to £600–700 just for a tap alone. So it's just the overall look at the end. So a hidden tap, obviously you would have like a dial here, and then you would have the bath spout coming out of the wall. The only problem with them, obviously, it's harder to maintain. Everything's hidden in the wall. Your pipe work's not as accessible as the exposed taps. Obviously, exposed, you take the panel off, you can access everything. There's benefits to them both. It just depends on the finish. So they're very nice, to be honest. They're well built. The mechanisms are nice to work with. You know, not clunky. They do feel solid. It's got a very nice finish to them. You know, you do get some, you can see that a cheaper finish, whereas these are good quality taps. It depends how you set them up. You can restrict the flow to your taps underneath. You can turn the isolations down so it's not as powerful. This one is at full bore, so that's why it's quite a large output. I've never seen that issue unless it's the actual plumbing itself, whereas you from a gravity fed hot, and obviously to a combi hot, you've got the pressure on a combi hot where you've really got the gravity pressure. What people don't think about is your tap is here and your tank's only up there, so it's not much pressure drop. That's the only time you'll really see it. So if it's not got a lot of pressure, you can obviously pump your hot water in your bathroom to equalise the pressures. That's generally what you'll do if you are a tank system and you do want to put a thermostatic shower mixer on. To match it, you will obviously install a pump so it equalises the pressure. Depending on the quality of the brand, you know, I always say they should last a long time, but it depends what's been fitted into it. You can obviously get cheaper versions that ain't gonna last as long as a product. It's the old saying of you do get for what you pay for. You ain't gotta go to the high end, but I'd always say go to mid-range more than the bottom. For a half decent one, you're looking over £200. If they feel competent to do it, then by all means go ahead. If you're not competent, it can cause leaks. A lot of upstairs bathroom like this, if you have a quite big leak that's going straight through the floor, straight down, it can cause a lot of damage to your property. But again, if you feel competent, then I'd go for it. If not, call the plumber in. I wouldn't ever recommend cleaning it with neat bleach on any sort of surface. It is only a painted coat over the top of the actual metalwork itself. I tend to use plant-based products, proper bathroom products that ain't got any harshness in them. But I would never use bleach on anything, not even the baths, because you have to check manufacturer instructions on what it can actually be cleaned with. Some shower trays and some baths, for instance, won't take neat bleach straight onto them. You could probably paint a bath tap with the correct like metal paint apparat or something. If you're going to go and paint your bath taps, I would just say get them replaced. I would never recommend painting them. It's not a finish you want, really. Now, I've painted old-fashioned cisterns before, what are the metal cast iron cisterns, but they are made to be stripped and painted. So the Thomas Crapper toilets, the big old-fashioned ones, I have painted them, but obviously using the correct paint that the manufacturer says to use. It all depends on the position of the taps. Ideally you want them at either end, and they're not too bad to replace depending on obviously what sort of panel you've got. Some properties can have a tiled bath panel, some can have a plastic panel. Obviously plastic or the wooden panels you just remove, and then you can get easy access to them with the correct spanners. There is some baths that have them on the back in the centre. Now they are very tricky, you can't normally replace them. So it's one of them you will be taking out your bath just to replace a tap. From the sake of coming in, taking everything out, taking your taps out and installing the new taps, you're probably an hour or two maybe, depending on how tricky it is behind it. So sometimes you go behind and there's a lot of bar work going on. Sometimes it ain't simple behind there, sometimes it's dead tight. This one's obviously got quite a bit of room behind it. Some come straight down, so it's very tricky sometimes. So it all depends on the style of bath itself and how long them taps have been on there. Sometimes there's not to see solid, so you've got to penetrate the fluid first and then you can get them off. Sometimes they'll come off dead easy, but I would say between 1 to 2 hours on average. If you're obviously first installing everything together, I would think you're best off preparing. Get your taps on the bath first if you're putting the bath in as well, or before you put a basin on, get all your taps attached to all the flexi pipe. So once you've got it on, it's the case of just connect it up. You don't have to use the adjustable spanners like I do. It does make it a bit tricky unless you're used to using them. You can get proper tap spanners, will reach up there. So if I was coming to replace that tap, I would get the tap spanner out just because it's easier to get up there. On the install of the bath, a lot of people just put them straight in the centre, and then once you've actually added your tiles onto this, you realise they're set further back because of the tiles brought out. So what I do is I bring them out an extra 15mm from the wall, and then I'll centre the gap between where my mark is on that 15mm to the front, and then they'll go in the centre of that. Once it's actually tiled, it looks in the centre. At the moment they look off-centred until the tiles are actually put on.